Hi, welcome to LearnEx Academy. Today we're going to look at the SAT and we're going to look at vocabulary that is found on the SAT. So we'll look at a few examples of words as well as expanding on our vocabulary to improve our overall SAT score. Generally speaking, one of the first things people do when they're preparing for the SAT exam is to start memorizing words. And this is okay, this is recommended, and this is a good practice to follow, but we need to really do more than just memorizing words. Okay, but if you want to memorize a few words, here's a good practice to follow. Take those vocabulary words and make cue cards from them, where you're basically putting the vocabulary in the middle. Okay, you're identifying the part of speech. How is it used in a sentence typically? You can give a picture or an illustration, or you can even use the word in a sentence, okay, so that you're using it in context. Okay, and then you have the back of the card with the definition, synonyms and antonyms for that word. As you know, synonyms are words that mean the same, and antonyms are words that are opposite of. So actually you're expanding on your present vocabulary by including synonyms and antonyms, words that have some relationship to that word as well. So here's a short sample of some of the words that may be found on the SAT with their definition. And there are many lists and many words that you can study for the SAT. It's really not possible for you to memorize all the words that may be found on the SAT. Alright, so it's really important that we use other skills to help us understand what words mean without using a dictionary. Because obviously on the exam you're not going to be given a dictionary to help you understand what words mean. Okay, so here we're looking at vocabulary words. We're understanding the part of speech. Depending on the part of speech, what's the definition? How is it used? Okay. We also look at context. How is the word used in a sentence? If we have a word that's been used as in a sentence, can we use some clues in the sentence that help us understand what that vocabulary word means? Okay. And then we also practice vocabulary words through synonyms and antonyms, which are words that are related to that word. Okay, and an illustration sometimes will help us to further understand what a vocabulary word means. Okay, so here is an example of one vocabulary word where we've given other things to kind of help us remember how that word is used and how can we actually apply that word to help us remember and understand, rather than just memorizing the word and the definition. We have some other points to think about there. Okay, another example of one vocabulary word with the synonym and the antonym. Okay, we've got the definition. And one more. So maybe you can think about writing a few cue cards to help you remember some of these vocabulary words. Or you could maybe practice writing them in a couple sentences where you're actually using them on your own and you're using them according to the actual meaning of that vocabulary word. I would have to recommend, though, that context clues in regards to the reading section, that's probably the best way to help you fit words accordingly for the fill in the blank section. And also those reading passages where they're saying give me the word that most nearly means the same as the word that is used in the passage. There we're looking at synonyms, so you really have to identify what is that word in the passage and then being able to use a synonym for that. So there's a lot of clues that we can look at when we're using a word, we come across a word in a passage to help us understand what that word means. So we're going to look at a few examples here. Okay, one of the obvious one is the definition or description clue, where we basically get the description and the definition of that word within the sentence. Now this doesn't happen very often, but sometimes writers use this. You're probably not going to find it on the SAT, but in this case, okay, this is the easiest context clue that we can possibly look at. So here's a few examples of what we mean by the definition clue. Okay, in the first example, we're looking at emaciation. Okay, so we think skeleton-like appearance is the definition of emaciation. All right, it's not so obvious. We have to think about our critical reading skills to figure out what this definition is. It's not obvious that, okay, this is the definition of the word. So we have to employ our critical thinking skills here. Okay. Second clue is always an example. Okay. We have a few words here. We're looking at piscatorial creatures. So they're giving us as an example of a context clue by giving us other types of fish, flounder, salmon, and trout. Now it's not obvious, but we understand that those are fish. So piscatorial obviously is referring to fish. Okay, synonym or restatement clue. Okay, we're using a synonym in place of a word in the sentence, and here you again have to employ your critical thinking skills to figure this out. It's not always obvious. Okay, the first example, we're looking at cynosure. All right. She was basically the focus of all attention. The new Miss America began her year-long reign. She was the cynosure of all eyes for the rest of the evening. So here we have to look at the previous sentence to understand the synonym restatement. The focus of all attention. We understand she was the focus of all attention, so cynosure almost means the focus of all attention. Okay. In the second example, can you go through and find out that clue that helps us understand torturous? Yeah, they're basically saying the mountain pass was a tortuous road, comma. Look at the punctuation. That can be a clue. Winding and twisting like a snake. So they're giving us some description of that. Winding and twisting must mean something related to tortuous. So it's a synonym. A word that basically means the same thing. Okay, experience clue. Experience clue is also a common clue that we can read in writing. All right, we take our own experience and kind of draw a conclusion here. So here we're looking at the word nostalgia. All right, and we think about this situation where the college freshman is thinking about his life in high school, and he felt at home, so a feeling of nostalgia sweeps over him. When we think about how we would feel in that kind of frame of mind, what would we think about? Nostalgia, how do we feel when we think about something that's already happened to us? So this is an example of an experience clue. Okay, analysis or structure clue. Okay, here we've given an example of incredible. We're looking at understanding prefixes, suffixes, and word roots. All right, so understanding those meanings will also help you determine what a word may mean. So even if you know only the prefix meaning or even a suffix meaning, that can give you a clue as to what the word means. So that might be advisable when you're thinking about vocabulary words. not so much focusing on actual words, but looking at prefixes, suffixes, word roots, the meanings, and how they're used and put together. Okay, inference clues. Basically, inference is drawing conclusions. Okay, I understand, I make an assumption, this is what I understand to be true based on what I've read. Okay, here they're talking about dull evening, bored. So I'm thinking about that situation, and they're saying the conversation was vapid. Though they're not actually saying it, it's okay, we understand it's uninteresting. The evening was dull and the person was bored. Okay, cause and effect clue. All right, here's an example. Just have a look at that there. The word culinary in relationship to this sentence obviously relates to food preparation. All right, let's do a few practice context clues together. See if we can identify not only what the word may mean, but we really want to focus strongly on identifying the clue that helps us understand what that word means. Let's do the first one together here. Okay, we're talking about loquacious history professor. All right, so what kind of context clue are we looking at here? If you read through it, you should be able to find a clue that helps you to understand what loquacious means. Now, loquacious is describing the professor. It's an adjective. So if you understand the part of speech, that'll help you figure out that word. The following sentence really helps you identify. That's a clue. Okay, it's almost like a description, or it's almost like a synonym where they're really using a phrase in place of loquacious. Okay, so if you probably identified that he was talkative, that would be the best meaning for that word. And you can go ahead and practice number 2 and 3 the same way. When you're reading through it, go ahead and identify the clue that helps you figure out what that word means. And think about the different types of context clues that we look at. Identify those specific, what type of clue is it? Is it an inference clue? Is it a synonym clue? What type of clue is it? We're not just looking at practicing to find the word that best describes or tells us what that word means. We also want to practice looking at the context clue in the sentence that helps us identify it. Okay, let's look at the 6th one here. Xenophobia is the word that we're looking at. Okay, and go ahead and read through that and find out if you can identify any context clue that helps us identify. All right, if you read the next sentence following that, that will probably help you understand xenophobia. The previous sentence doesn't really tell us too much about xenophobia. It tells us about the situation. We're talking about countries. But the last sentence, they were cautious about strangers. It's almost like a description. Okay? So a little cautious, we would say xenophobia is fear of foreigners. All right, you can look at 7, 8, and 9 and see if you can identify the context clue that helps you identify what the word must mean. And a few more practice questions relating to context clues. Let's do the first one together. His lucid lectures, along with his clearly presented explanations, made him a popular professor. Here we're almost using synonyms here, along with his clearly presented explanations. So we probably looking at a synonym here because we're looking at the word along. It almost means the same. Okay? Basically the same thing. Lucid lecture and his explanations, his presented explanations. There's a lot of similarity here, so we're looking at synonyms. So we're going to really conclude from this that lucid means very clear. Okay? See if you can go through 2, 3, 4, and 5 and identify the clues that help you understand those words. And a few more practice questions. Go ahead and read through those and identify the clues that will help you understand what that word must mean in the sentence. And they all have some kind of clue. One may be more obvious than the other one. Some may be a little bit harder to find that clue, but there should be something that'll help you. If you look at number 6, you can see in the sentence they're talking about the word implausible. They're describing story. And then they're talking about a UFO. Okay, we know UFOs are really fictitious. Okay, so we most likely mean a story that's really not believable. Okay, so our clue would be the story, describing the word story. And also, they're talking about a UFO. We know UFOs generally don't exist, so it's probably an unbelievable story. The synonym for implausible would be unbelievable. Okay, so if you would like some more information or more help with SAT vocabulary and working on context clues, go ahead and visit us at www.learnexacademy.com or write to us at care@learnexacademy.com. And feel free to join us on Skype with LearnEx.tech or LearnEx Academy, LearnEx.academy. Thank you.